Mr. Estes is recognized to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to strike the last word. I appreciate you including my research and development bill as part of this package. It's an important part. You know, families and small businesses have been suffering for 2 years under the failed economic policies of this administration. As we can see by this chart, inflation's up 15.3% since Joe Biden took office in January of 2021, much higher than either of his two predecessors over the same period of time. It's clear Americans need relief and economic growth, and that's what we're doing here today. Now, we've heard a lot of demagoguing from my colleagues on the other side about this economic growth package, which contains some common sense policies that some of my colleagues actually support. One of these is the American Innovation and R&D Competitiveness Act. I reintroduced this common sense bill on tax day of this year with my colleague John Larson, along with Representatives LaHood, Delbene, Arrington, Panetta, and 56 other original co-sponsors. The bill continues to gain support and has 101 co-sponsors today, evenly split between Republicans and Democrats. And of the 18 Democrats on this committee, 11 are also co-sponsors. The bill is straightforward. It corrects a tax issue businesses faced when conducting research and development. The American Innovation and R&D Competitiveness Act allows for immediate expensing on eligible R&D costs, bringing us back to where we were just a few years ago and securing U.S. dominance in research and development. Full expensing for R&D was allowed through the end of 2021. However, with the beginning of 2022, businesses have been required to spread out or amortized R&D expenses over 5 years for domestic R&D and 15 years for foreign R&D. As we've heard from our field hearings throughout the country, this practice is not sustainable for businesses of any size, big or small. Instead, as the Association of Equipment Manufacturers said, the bill offers a much-needed boost for the equipment manufacturing industry at a time when America faces adverse inflation and strained supply chains. AEM isn't the only organization praising the bill. The National Taxpayers Union featured this legislation as their on their no-brainer list in 2020. The list is a collection of 10 bills that NTU deems to be no-brainer bills that have bipartisan support and should easily be passed in Congress. Although they only recognized bills once, they included this legislation as an honorable mention the following year and sent a letter of support to members of the House Ways and Means in this Congress. I would also like to submit for the record a letter from the R&D Coalition highlighting the importance of R&D expensing.
Without objection, so ordered.
All of these organizations know where R&D occurs, jobs and economic opportunities follow. And this isn't just about major corporations. R&D supports businesses of all sizes. According to the R&D Coalition, about 15% of private U.S. R&D investments are made by small businesses with fewer than 500 employees. Right now, the United States is lagging behind in R&D, a trend that's been happening for a while. According to the R&D Coalition, the U.S. share of global R&D investments in 2019 was 30%, down from 40% in 1999. Unlike the United States, China's global share of R&D investment has gone up. It was 24% in 2019, a big jump from just 5% in 2000. That means China's R&D expenses have increased, or China's R&D investments have increased 400% in just 2 decades. And here's how they changed the trajectory of their R&D presence. China's implemented a deduction of up to 200% on eligible R&D investments. So literally they're paying 10 times the credit for companies to come do R&D in China. Without an incentive for homegrown R&D, the U.S. also loses out on creating new jobs. The R&D Coalition says for every $1 billion of U.S. R&D spending, 17,000 jobs earning $1.5 billion are supported in the United States. They also note that unless the R&D amortization policy is reversed, the U.S. stands to lose 410,000 jobs, $57.5 billion in labor income, and $71 billion in R&D spending over the next 10 years. The American Innovation and R&D Competitiveness Act is the right solution to help small and family businesses in our districts, and with such strong bipartisan support, it's clear that this bill shouldn't be used as a political trade for partisan legislation. With more than half my colleagues on the other side of this committee already supporting the legislation, there's no excuse to hold up this critical tax provision. Today's research and development dollars create tomorrow's jobs, and we need to keep R&D dollars inside our country where they can help strengthen American businesses and workers. I want to thank my colleague, Congressman Larson, for working with me on this legislation in this Congress and in previous Congresses, and now is the time for the American Innovation and R&D Competitiveness Act to become law. I yield back.